Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome to this video. And if you're watching this in January 2025, Happy New Year to you. If you're new to the channel, welcome. It's lovely to have you along. If you've been here before, welcome back. Your continued support is greatly appreciated and never goes unnoticed, so thank you very much. Today I'm going to share with you 50 records that are 50 years old this year, records that were released in 1975, a brilliant year for music, but then again every year in the 70s was a brilliant year for music. So I've got 50 records from 50 different artists that are 50 years old, all released in 75. And I'm going to show those via 10 albums, 10 singles and 30 tracks, album tracks. So first up is Dr. Feelgood, Malpractice. I think they brought out down at the Jetty as well in 75, I think. I don't have that on vinyl, sadly, and I think that possibly would just edge this one, but I do love this album as well. This has got Back in the Night and Going Back Home, which is just brilliant songs. So that's the first one from 75. Next up is Fly By Night, the second album from Canadian three-piece Rush, but the first to include Neil Peart, and he very much changed the sound. So prior to this, the debut album, which I actually prefer to this, is very Led Zeppelin-like, and the sound completely changed when Neil Peart arrived, as lyrical content did as well. Some classic Rush moments on it: Anthem, Fly By Night, Biter and the Snow Dog is a real epic, and I love the closer in the end. But yeah, a real kind of signal of intent in terms of the direction of travel of that band. But that's from 75. Next band, I blow hot and cold with this band, I really do. Always brilliant musicians. Sometimes I find them a little bit insipid, and other times, you know, a bit like kind of coffee shop music or elevator music, and other times I really enjoy listening to them. And I enjoyed listening to this the other day, so I might have to revisit Steely Dan. This is Katie Live, 50 years old this year. Black Friday, top 5 Steely Dan song for me. I like Dr. Wu with a brilliant saxophone solo from Phil Woods. And I like Chain Lightning as well from this album. So I'd be fascinated to know what people think of Steely Dan in the comments, actually, because I say I blow hot and cold with them. Next up is one of the few double studio albums that I don't mind, although it is quite sprawling and a bit outtakey in places. But Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin has got some classic moments. It's obviously got Kashmir on it, but it's also got my favourite song on here, which is 10 Years Gone, which is tremendous. Next up is a band that reinvented themselves in 75. Prior to this, they were a blues band. But in 1975, a couple of Americans joined the band, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, and they brought out this album, Fleetwood Mac. A real change in direction, a real change in sound, but a really good, consistent album. Say You Love Me, great. Landslide's a beautiful song. I'm So Afraid that closes the album. Wonderful guitar from Lindsey Buckingham, really underrated guitarist, I think. And Rhiannon, well, that's just an amazing song. I love that. I like 70s Aerosmith. Not so keen on 80s Aerosmith, but I like 70s Aerosmith, and this, I think, is possibly their best album, actually. This is Toys in the Attic. Good title track. Uncle Salty's a good song. It's got the classic Walk This Way that they did a version with Run DMC, which was awful, but it reinvented the band, I think, and brought them back into the kind of public domain. And in Sweet Emotion, absolutely classic 70s rock song. Next album is an album, it's probably the only album I've ever kept in the shrink, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. This has got Shine On You Crazy Diamond on it, which is in 2 parts on the album. Now, I remember buying a compilation CD, a Pink Floyd compilation CD, I think it was called Echoes, in the early 2000s, and it put the 2 parts of Shine On You Crazy Diamond together, and it really works. It's an absolute masterpiece, but it is a brilliant song, and this is a great album. The title track is superb, I think. Next album is a guy hugely influential and an absolute master of the guitar. Sadly passed away a couple of years ago. Is he as influential as Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix? No. Is he technically better than those two? Quite possibly. A master of the guitar, Jeff Beck. He did 2 brilliant fusion albums, Wired and this one, Blow by Blow. So, you know, She's a Woman, Constipated Duck, good kind of funky fusion numbers. Because We've Ended as Lovers. He makes the guitar sing, as it, you know, he's just incredible. The sounds, he's got different notes on his guitar than everyone else. It's amazing. Freeway Jam is just brilliant. And last couple of Deep Purple related, of course. If you come to this channel a lot, you know I love this band. But in 75, they brought out their kind of final album before they broke up. This one features American guitarist Tommy Bolin, so lots of people don't regard it as a Deep Purple album. I think it's a really good album. And it's the first Deep Purple studio album I ever bought, actually. Lots of people were playing this when I went to secondary school in 1975. And I remember getting a copy of it. I love Lady Luck. I love the opening track, Coming Home. I love Drifter this time around. And in You Keep On Moving, the closing track, absolutely classic Deep Purple. The guitarist on that was Tommy Bowling. He brought out a solo album that year, which I think is one of the best albums of 75. He is, I think, a hugely underappreciated guitarist. He could play it all. He could play fusion, he could play jazz, he could play rock, blues, funk, he could play it all, and does so on this album. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, let's look at some 45s. The first 5 are songs that I listened to when I was at primary school. So I was at primary school or middle school up until September, or July rather, 75, and then I went to secondary school in September 75. So when I was at primary school, the last song at every school disco was I'm Not In Love by 10cc, which is just a brilliant song. I think originally that was going to have like a samba rhythm to it, but they changed that, thankfully. Great song. The next song is, I think it's a classic pop tune, actually. It's Sky High by Jigsaw. I think it's a great song. It's from a film. It's like a martial arts film. I can't remember the name of it. It's got George Lazenby, the guy who was the original James Bond. I can't think of the name of the film, but it's a great pop song, as is this. This is a Four Seasons cover, and this is the biggest selling single of 1975, Bye Bye Baby by Bay City Rollers, which I think features on, it's on a Christmas film, Love Actually, I think, isn't it, on the kind of at the start, a funeral scene, but it's just a brilliant pop song. Next up, Sweet, Fox on the Run. I think this was the first single that was a solely band-written single, and it's a great song. I absolutely love it. Before that, it was Chin and Chapman, wasn't it, before that? And then in this song, one of the classics, not just of 75, but of the 70s, I think, Make Me Smile by Steve Harley and Cockney Rebel. Fantastic stuff. 3 songs, or 3 singles that I kind of didn't know about, particularly in 75. They weren't things I was necessarily listening to, but I love them now. Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. It's my favourite Bruce Springsteen song, actually. I'm not a massive fan, but I think that's one of his anthems, and that's a great 45. I did a video on Mott the Hoople and Ian Hunter recently, and this featured highly. Once Bitten, Twice Shy, the debut single from Ian Hunter from his debut album, the first track on that album. Absolute classic, I think. And this next single I bought in 77. I didn't realise it came out in 75, and I think it was written even earlier than that, but it did come out in United Artists in 75, and it's Roadrunner by Jonathan Richman, which is one of my favourite songs of all time, and that actually came out in 75. Didn't do anything. In 77 it became quite a big hit, and is just a brilliant song. I love it. One particular band I didn't get at the time, and I think I get them more now. I'm not a massive fan, but I do get them more now. And that's Roxy Music and Love Is the Drug from the album Siren, which is a decent album. And then this was, I think, number 1 at Christmas 75, and is one of the most well-known songs of all time, without doubt. Bohemian Rhapsody, 50 years old this year. Wow, blimey. Okay, so 30 album tracks. Now, in 1974, Ritchie Blackmore left Deep Purple, and together with members of a band called Elf, who used to support Deep Purple quite a lot in 74, he formed Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Now, I didn't hear this album until after I'd heard the album After This Rising and the live album from 77 on stage. And so there's some songs on here which just don't sound as good as the live versions. 16th Century Greensleeves, Still I'm Sad, Man on the Silver Mountain, Catch the Rainbow, which was extended to about sort of 15 minutes on the live album. But there's one song on here I think is absolutely beautiful. It's called Temple of the King. So it's a reasonable debut. It's nowhere near as good as Rising, but Temple of the King's a wonderful song. Next up, bit of Southern rock. You can tell that by the cover. The Outlaws, what a good band they were, a good Southern rock band. The closing track, Green Grass and High Tides, is their kind of Freebird. All Southern rock bands had a Freebird, and theirs was Green Grass and High Tides, which is a guitar classic. Love it. Next up, 2 fusion albums, Lenny White, Venusian Summer, and Journey to Love by Stanley Clarke. Both of these guys had been in Return to Forever, I think, yes. On this album, the closing track has got a kind of real guitar workout with some immense guitar from David Sanchez on it. It's called Concerto for Jazz Rock Orchestra, which is fantastic. And on this album, an even better song closes the album called Prince of the Sea, which has got Larry Coryell and Aldi Meola playing guitar together, which is just an absolute guitar fest. It's amazing. Prince of the Sea, Lenny White, Venusian Summer. Next up, a double album, quite sprawling album again from Spirit this time. Spirit of 76, although it came out in 75. Got a couple of really good covers on it, like a Rolling Stone, Walking the Dog, and a tremendous version of Hey Joe that Jimi Hendrix made famous. They were good friends, I think, Jimi Hendrix and Randy California. And the version on here of Hey Joe is absolutely brilliant. It's a psychedelic masterpiece, really is. Ted Nugent brought out his debut album in 75. The opening track, Stranglehold, is a guitar masterpiece as well. It's a great song. And Osabisa brought out this album in 75, Welcome Home, World Music Band. The opening song, Sunshine Day, is just a joyous song. It was a single, I think, in 76 rather than 75. But what a way to start the album. It's just brilliant. It's an absolutely gorgeous song. Next up is a band that my last video was on, and that's Budgie, Welsh band. This is Bandolier from 75. There's a song on here that closes the album, which I think is brilliant. A top 5 Budgie song for me. Napoleon Boner Part 1 and Napoleon Boner Part 2 is fantastic. Starts slow, builds up. It's brilliant. The guitarist, Tony Burge, you know, he's almost right up there with Tony Iommi in terms of his riffs. Amazing. Changing direction now. John Abercrombie, ECM album, playing alongside Jan Hammer and Jack DeJohnette on drums, Jan Hammer on keyboards. John Abercrombie is a guitarist. This is a beautiful album. I love the cover of that. I love ECM covers. They're great. That's a superb cover. But the title track, Timeless, is a beautiful piece of music. Horses by Patti Smith. What a great album this is, a classic album. The opening song, Gloria, which is partly the Van Morrison song, is just one of the greatest opening tracks on an album ever, I think. It's just brilliant. Second album from Bebop Deluxe came out in 75, featuring the guitar talents of Bill Nelson. This is Futurama, and if you notice a kind of a very similar look here to, if I can find it, to Wish You Were Here, and it's the same artist who did the design, George Hardy possibly, I'd have to look that up, but anyway, Futurama. This is a great album. This is the album that has Made in Heaven. Remember seeing that on Old Grey Whistle Test, and I thought, God, that's brilliant. But the standout song from this album for me is Soundtrack. It's brilliant. Steve Hillage brought out his debut album, solo album, in 1975. He'd previously been in Gong and in a kind of a psychedelic band called Azazel or something, and also in a band called Khan. But this is his debut album, Fish Rising, which is a really strange album, but a good album. I enjoy it. It's quite psychedelic in places, but the Salmon song's got some great guitar on it. This is another album that's got some great guitar on it. It features this is Alphonse Mouzon, Mind Transplant. Alphonse Mouzon, how cool is he? Is a tremendous drummer. He played with Larry Coryell in the 11th House. Great drummer. And he employs Lee Ritenour, a very young Lee Ritenour on this album. And there's a song on here called Happiness is Loving You, which is a really good, funky instrumental, really good song. And a song called Nitroglycerine, which has Tommy Bolin playing guitar on it, which is a fusion classic. So that's Mind Transplant on Blue Note Records, Alphonse Mouzon. Second album from Bad Company, possibly their best album. I think their debut is very good. This is also probably more consistent maybe than their debut, possibly. This has got a tremendous couple of singles on it, Feel Like Making Love and Good Loving Gone Bad, which has got a B-side called Whiskey Bottle, which is one of my favourite, it's not on the album actually, but it's one of my favourite Bad Company songs. But it's got those two. It's got Shooting Star, which is great, Deal with the Preacher, Wildfire Woman. Yeah, really good, consistent album. Love it. Love this album as well. Fawcett, I did a video on UFO recently. This is a great album. Michael Schenker, what a guitarist he is. What a guitar tone. Melodic solos, wonderful riffing, brilliant vocals from Phil Mogg. Let It Roll, Out in the Street, Mother Mary, and the absolute classic Shoot Shoot. Uriah Heep, this is the last, I think this is the last album to feature Dave Byer on, possibly. This is Return to Fantasy. It's not a great album, but the title track is classic Uriah Heep and is a must listen. It's brilliant. German band, ambient kind of keyboard, spacey kind of band, Tangerine Dream, brought out a couple of albums, I think, in 75, Rubicon and this one, Ricochet, which is my favourite Tangerine Dream album. 2 songs, part 1 and part 2. Ricochet Part 2 is a beautiful piece of music. Warrior on the Edge of Time by Hawkwind, inspired by stuff by Michael Moorcock, came out in 75. I think it's the last album to feature Lemmy Kilminster, who obviously went on to be Lemmy in Motorhead. And my favourite song on here is Kings of Speed, which came out as a single in 75, and the B-side of that was a song called Motorhead, which obviously went on to be the name of Lemmy's band, and also a much kind of heavier, faster version of that song is one of my favourites by that band. The debut album from Heart was 1975. I think this is obviously Nancy Wilson and Ann Wilson. I think Ann Wilson has the greatest female rock voice ever. And if you don't believe me, watch their version of Stairway to Heaven at the Kennedy Awards. Oh my God. Her voice is unbelievable. She also, you're probably aware of their kind of 80s stuff, big ballads. They did a song called Alone. The acoustic version of that, Ann Wilson's voice on that is just off the chart. It's brilliant. And I really like this album. This has got Crazy on You, Magic Man, 2 of their classics. The song Dreamboat Annie is good. Quite a Led Zeppelin influenced band, acoustic kind of Led Zeppelin. But I think that's a great debut. I really enjoy that. This is, I don't know where this sits in their discography. This is Fandango by ZZ Top. Half live, half studio. The studio side is really good. The live side isn't. The studio side is really good. It's got their classic tush on it. It's also got a song called Blue Jean Blues, which is just superb blues song. I love it. Janice Ian. This is Between the Lines from 75, which has the absolutely beautiful At 17. What a classic song that is. Just amazing. From 75, we've got the Allman Brothers Band, and this is Win, Lose or Draw. It's all right, this album. It's obviously no Duane Allman on this band. It's got Dickie Betts handling the guitar work on it. But there's an instrumental on here called High Falls, which features to the fore Dickie Betts. And it sounds a bit like Jessica, but a bit more jazzy. It's about 15 minutes long, but it's just beautiful. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favourite Allman Brothers songs, High Falls, from Win, Lose or Draw. Bit of jazz rock, jazz fusion. This is Bundles by Soft Machine. Now, this is very different to earlier Soft Machine, so much more fusiony. And one of the reasons for that is Alan Holdsworth appears on this album. And in Hazard Profile Part 1, the opening track, an absolute fusion classic. Brilliant stuff. Equinox by Styx. I don't know where this sits in their discography. Is this about 5th album by them? But it's got an absolutely classic song that closes the album called Sweet Madam Blue, which is just one of their best songs and is a brilliant rock song. Bob Marley and the Wailers, live at the Lyceum, which is London. This is recorded in July 75, released in 75. I don't think it's as good as Babylon by Bus, but it is a good album, and it features a definitive version of one of Bob Marley's best songs, which is No Woman, No Cry. Much longer, much more, just much better overall, but a brilliant, and it's the version I think that features on all the compilations, but it's nearly 7 minutes long, and it's just gorgeous. Okay, so 5 albums left and some real classic stuff here, I think. Robin Trower live. I love Robin Trower. I saw him in about 1979, 1980, Paul Art Centre. Just a brilliant guitarist. Has a very distinctive tone. He was obviously the guitarist with Procol Harum, then went solo. This live album is him touring the album Bridge of Sighs, which was his classic. But it's a really flawed live album because it doesn't feature some of the classic, like Day of the Eagle, for example. But in Two Rolling Stone, which opens this particular album, one of his absolute classic songs. So that's Robin Trower. Black Sabbath, this is what, their 5th album, possibly? 6th album? 6, I think. 6th album from 75. Not as consistent as their others. I know that some people regard this as one of their favourite albums, which is really interesting. What some brilliant attire they're wearing on that cover. But Symptom of the Universe, oh my God, that's just an amazing Sabbath song, isn't it? Just fantastic stuff. Three more. Journey brought out their debut album. Now, Journey obviously became a big stadium rock AOR band in the 80s. Don't Stop Believing, Who's Crying Now, all those kind of stuff. This is the version of the band that's much more kind of jazz rocky. So Neil Schon and Greg Rowley left Santana after doing Santana 3 and Caravanserai and formed Journey. And this has got some instrumental stuff on it that's very fusion-like. But the opening track of A Lifetime is an absolutely classic song. The guitar work on it is just sensational. It's brilliant. Talking of a sensational guitarist, this is Rory Gallagher, Against the Grain, brought out in 75, has one of my favourite Rory Gallagher songs, without a doubt. It's called Souped Up Ford. I saw him play that live. Oh, just amazing. He was a tremendous guitarist. When I saw him play, I saw him at Reading and I saw him at Poole Arts Centre. He just, it's like the guitar is part of him. He very rarely looks down to see what he's playing. He was just a wonderful player. Fantastic stuff. Souped Up Ford is amazing. And then the last one is one of my favourite bands and one of my favourite songs by them, from an album actually that probably isn't a top 5 album for me. And it's Fighting by Thin Lizzy, or Fightin', as Phil Lynott used to call it. Yes, this has got some good stuff on it, without a doubt. Rosalie's on it. Wild One, which was kind of like, for me, one of the first songs that they did that really had that dual guitar sound. But Suicide on here, for me, is one of their classic songs and one of the best songs of 1975. It was a song that they certainly wrote before they became a 4-piece, because I've heard a live version of it which has Eric Bell playing the guitar on it. But Suicide is one of the best Thin Lizzy songs and one of the best songs of 1975. So there you go. There's 50 songs or 50 records by 50 different artists that are 50 years old this year. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime with another video. Thanks very much. Cheers all.